I assure you.
Okay. Great.
You can just tell me. And you said you want me to start. You started with a question. I'm sorry. You were asking, "What am I doing? What is this about?"
Yes,
Sort of
yes.
thing. That ought to be the question.
Project.
I have a grant from the Humanities Council
Yes.
to record memories of Takoma theater. But my larger program, personally, quite frankly, is to record stories of Takoma and Takoma theater, and essentially to make almost a narrative map, or oral history map of the whole community.
I see.
I moved into Takoma in 1961 as a teenager.
Oh, really?
My family still has the house there, and I went to Coolidge, graduated from Coolidge in '64. And just to give you, I don't know how much you know about me.
So you have memories of Takoma Park,
Exactly,
and the theater as well, I'm sure.
Yes, went there as a teenager, you know.
So tell me more about yourself.
And I went on to college and graduate school. My PhD is in comparative literature and literary theory. My focus is on epic literature. That's my big deal. I love epic poetry and epic fiction and that sort of thing, which means I did a lot of Greek and Latin, but I also did African epic. And I was sort of the first person to identify the genre of African American epic, which is sort of how I got my first professorial job. I taught epic at Harvard for several years, 6 years or so, and then I went off to Mount Holyoke for 2 years and went back as a visiting professor at Harvard for a few years. After my father became ill here in Washington, I decided to move back to help my mother care for him.
I see.
And I spent a couple of years at William and Mary, but I decided that I needed to be in Washington. I also wanted to focus more on writing. That even though I love epics and I love being a professor, my great love is to be a writer. And I've published several books, which may or may not have heard about. But that's what I do.
I see.
So that's me, and I'm the vice president of the Takoma Theater Conservancy, working with Loretta, who was the president, trying to. Actually doing the same thing I was just talking about with Sister Space and Books, trying to bring my literacy programs into the theater and make them a part. I've just finished my most recent work has been I was commissioned by the National Opera, Washington National Opera, to do an opera on Marian Anderson, which is coming out next year.
Oh, that's
and I hope you'll be able to see that. You'll be.
I seem to have heard of that.
You may have, because it's been sort of being buzzed about. No one's heard it yet, but there's sort of a little bit of a.
That is wonderful.
Yeah, it's quite exciting. I did only the libretto. Let me make that clear. I'm the word person, I'm not a musician.
Oh, but that should be fantastic.
Yeah, and it's the 70th anniversary of her famous concert on the Mall, and the 200th anniversary of Lincoln, anniversary of the birth of Lincoln. And the 125th anniversary of the birth of Eleanor Roosevelt. So it's all happening. So it's sort of a
What year? This is next year?
Next year, 2009 will be all three of those things. So we're quite excited that it'll be connected not only with Marian Anderson herself, but with
President
people
Lincoln
going into Lincoln and into
Absolutely.
Eleanor Roosevelt's birthday is in October. So.
Now, when do you anticipate the production? Will that be in late 2009?
No, we expect it to be in March of 2009.
Oh, that's great.
Trying to make it her birthday, that is Marian Anderson's birthday, was in February, so we're trying to get it a little bit closer to that, and halfway between that and Easter, because the original concert was on Easter Sunday.
Oh, well, please keep me posted. I can think of any number of organizations that I'm involved with that would be interested in that, from, of course, the Humanities Council to the Links. I mean, with one chapter, I'm sure all the chapters of the Links would have.
Yes, I believe this. It really is. It's causing quite a stir. I mean, New York is already booking it for the Apollo Theater. And Bank Street School is interested. I don't know if you know about them, but they're the ones who created Sesame Street.
I see.
And they want to use it as a program and then create some educational things connected to it. So it's quite exciting. You can imagine as an author, and we don't get to see our works out anywhere much, unless you're a bestseller and somebody makes a movie maybe. But I don't have that. But this is quite exciting for me because I've never had.
That's great.
Like
well,
this.
Keep me posted.
I sure will. And now I will go on and ask you about
okay, and I have a kinship to this project for two reasons, apart from the fact that I've been talking about it with gosh, why am I blanking? You have to,
Loretta?
You have to definitely take
And you know
this
what I'm
part
going to
out.
do?
Just take that out.
Couple of things. Oh, don't. I don't. It's not, I have no value. I'm going to sit like this so I get more of a frontal picture of you.
Okay. All right.
And from time to time, I may just do like this, and it's easier for me to edit it if it's in smaller pieces. So I may just stop it and start it again.
That's fine.
And that's
Loretta and I have been talking about it. But I'm on the DC Humanities Council.
Oh, so you help give us this money. Thank you.
Well, I wasn't involved in this particular, but I was aware of it very much
Okay.
so. Yeah, absolutely. So there are two very important initiatives. Absolutely.
And I have found that the best thing for me to do is, instead of having a group of set questions, I ask sort of a general question at the beginning, and then everything you
Okay.
say will cause me to think of more things to ask you. And I guess I'll start by saying, what's your connection with the theater? Your memories of it, your early memories of the theater?
Well, I grew up in Riggs Park in Washington, D.C., and the Takoma Theater wasn't too far from where we lived. And in the summer, we would, some of our summer activities growing up would include going to the pool, the Takoma pool, which was always fun. But also, we have spent many sweltering hot summer afternoons in Washington in the Takoma Theater.
Especially August.
In August, that's right. And I have fond memories of the Takoma Theater as a neighborhood gathering spot where all the kids were welcome, and we would go. This was at a time when not everyone had air conditioning in their homes, and we did not at that point. And my mom would take a few of my friends and me, and she'd drop us off at the theater in the heat of the day, 12 or 1 o'clock, and we would watch, I don't know, they certainly weren't first-run movies at that point, but they were movies that we were interested in, and they ranged from westerns to 60s love stories. I can remember some movies with Gidget, with Elvis Presley, and we would go in the theater and in the early afternoon, and we pretty much stay there until it got cool, until about 5:30 or 6 o'clock, right? And that's when late afternoon, around 5, my mom would pick us up, and we would have filled ourselves with popcorn and candy and watched the movie several times over. And the theater attendants were known to us, were very friendly, and they let us sit there, and we'd socialize with friends, and it was a fun gathering spot. And it was a beautiful theater. I remember it had it just seemed, it was ornate, and it was just a very very pretty theater at that time, and I have very fond memories because I spent many hot summer afternoons there with my friends.
Yes, and do you? I do remember it, of course, as well. I'm smiling because I'm remembering
that too.
And the beautiful ceiling.
Oh yes, that's what I remember. The
so
round
you felt
ceiling.
Like somehow elegant. When you walked into it.
Absolutely. It was just a great place. Really a great monument to times, I guess, past in a sense, because I don't know if there are very many theaters left that look like that have that sort of aesthetic appeal.
Yes, and I remember sort of, we would go downtown from time to time at the Warner, the big ones downtown.
Yes.
But it was wonderful to have something that actually
had
that ornate quality in your own neighborhood.
In your own neighborhood.
Yes, that was wonderful.
Absolutely.
So tell me, do you remember whether it was high school? I'm sorry, I feel like I'm not trying to ask your age. I'm just trying to find out.
Do I remember how old I was?
Yeah, was it high school, junior high?
Oh no. We were 9, 10, 11 years
okay,
old. Somewhere between 10 and 12, maybe in that. In that age. I mean, old enough to go to the movies with a group of friends.
Yes. Okay.
At a time when that was considered, it was still safe to do.
Yes, a group of girls.
Yeah, group of kids, yeah.
Did you, okay, so then you must have, sounds like I was meant a decade older at the same time.
Yeah, I think you're in my brother's age group. He
Yeah.
was, because he graduated from McKinley, not Coolidge. He went to Coolidge for a year, but then he transferred to McKinley because he wanted to be on the drill team. But he graduated in '65. So he's about 10 years older.
Isn't
than
that
I am.
interesting? I have met more 65 graduates than I think they must be the class.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he graduated in 1965.
Yeah, I was 64. So
You were 64, so
yeah.
you're in the same
I'm the
basic
same,
age group.
same
Yes.
basic. Yeah, so I remember it. So it's a little bit different.
So this would have been in the 60, somewhere between probably 67 and 69, 66 and 69. That would have been the time frame.
Yeah,
and
so
I think it might have closed not too long.
Yeah, like 71, 72.
Is that when it closed?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, when it was closed, so that you do have the early memories of it. I've been trying to, I'm just curious to know if you remember, for example, what was across the street from it. Do you remember anything around it at all? It's just sort of one of the things
Yeah, I cannot remember. It seems to me there might have been a 5 and dime store or something like that, but I can't remember specifically. But I seem to remember there were shops, there were some kind of shops close by, but I don't remember what they were.
Do you have any memory of the Safeway across the street from it? It may have been already gone by then. Because
Vaguely, just
yes,
vaguely.
it was on its
Oh
way out.
yes,
It was
I
on its
do
way out.
remember now, but
Yeah.
I've forgotten about that.
Yes.
But
Yeah, in a way, I'm almost trying to recreate how the memory, not what I can always find out when it actually was gone, but it's curious how the memory of it. And it seems that the people who actually lived in nearby, I mean not nearby, not in Takoma rather than Riggs Park or even Shepherd Park or here, don't remember any of the stores around it. But those of us who lived right there remember the other
You
parts.
remember the
and
other.
you can it's almost like I can tell where everybody lived.
Oh right, by what you remember.
And that's,
Now, what other stores do you remember?
well, there was a People's Drug Store right there where I think it's actually somebody like, it's like Barack, the name of a realty.
Okay. Oh
office
yes,
right
yes,
there.
I know exactly. You're right.
Yeah,
There
that was the People's Drug Store, and there was and the Safeway, which now you can't imagine a Safeway in a building so small.
No,
but
you
now there's
cannot.
a church
Right,
that's
where the
directly.
so that's where the Safeway was. Yeah. So it was like a bustling neighborhood center
Yes.
at that point.
Yeah. Now, did you you don't do you remember any like Doris Day movies? Do you remember just Elvis?
Oh no, there were Doris Day. Doris Day, I do remember there were. I call them like B movies. I don't
Yeah,
know
they were
what
always
they,
yes.
yeah,
I understand.
But yeah, Doris Day, Gidget,
I have Gidget and you also the Elvis
and
movies.
Elvis Presley. I remember. Oh, wait a minute. There was another one. We saw some Clint Eastwood movies there. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yes.
I believe was when that came out in the mid '60s, I think, and I think that was one that I remember seeing there.
Did you remember seeing were any of the Beatles movies? I'm just
I
curious.
don't remember the Beatles
Maybe.
specifically.
Yeah, you probably
I
won't.
don't remember those specifically.
Okay. My cousin and I had a thing of going to all the Beatles movies there. They would always run.
Oh, so you remember going to see those?
Yes.
Okay.
But it was well after, after they'd gone through all the big movies, theaters, and they'd finally get to Tacoma. And what other? I'm sorry, another one was. Because there's a new movie out now about Agent 007.
Oh, I think I do remember that.
Yeah, that definitely was almost like the cult. event.
Absolutely, absolutely. Was there an ice cream parlor anywhere around there?
Yes, do you remember that?
See, I knew in the back of my
pretty good.
mind, I
That's real
remember
good.
an ice cream parlor. Yeah.
It was actually in the theater, downstairs.
Because that was part of the ritual.
Yes,
You
you
know.
had to get the ice cream and then go get or one way or the other, going or coming, you had to get your ice cream.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was just so much. It was so much fun. I mean, an afternoon at the theater in the hot on a hot summer day, nothing like it.
Yes.
And when you went, did you all stay over and over?
Oh
and watch
yes. I'm curious, and these are weird little things. Whenever we would stay over and over, the term that the next generation would use, our parents and aunts and so forth, did you buck the theater?
Oh,
That was the word
that's
they
what
used
they
for it.
called it.
And I've never heard it used anywhere else except with my parents.
Oh, that's interesting.
you've
No, I've never
that
heard
term.
of that.
No,
But the interesting thing to me was they never put us out. I mean,
no,
they knew you
it was
were there.
considered a part.
It was
yeah.
part of the experience.
Yes.
And you knew all the attendants there.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a community gathering spot. And the kids were very well behaved.
Extremely so.
And most of them did not have parents.
Yeah,
We were
that's
there
right.
on our own.
All of them, yeah.
There might have been a big brother or big sister who was kind of supervising the group, but I don't think there were any parents in that group.
No, I don't remember.
Usually siblings and friends, and everybody was extremely well behaved. I think we were just very happy to be in from the heat.
In my mind going back.
I watched the big screen.
Yeah, I was already in college by '67, '69, and when I returned, the neighborhood seemed very different. Coolidge was troubled.
Yes.
I graduated from Coolidge,
Yes.
as I said, in '64, and I was curious to know whether the piece remained at Takoma Theater. I'm sorry, I can't remember when we talked on the phone whether I told you this story, but one experience I had that I think about when I tell my story for Takoma Theater is that when I went to the Sheraton Theater once, there was a scene in which it was actually, I think it was the Ten Commandments, something like that, and the whole audience, it was a very rowdy compared to Takoma. I wasn't used to. It was like not my type of audience, if you know what I mean. Very, very loud and raucous. And when the scene came when the Egyptians drowned, they jumped up and started screaming and joy. And it was clear that it was a racial incident. It was a group of African Americans screaming, thinking they were killing it was very strong.
Right.
And I had never had that kind of anguish and anger inside the theater itself. And I can remember sort of rushing back, as it were, to Takoma, where people treated theater as theater and enjoyed it and didn't take so much of their own pain and anguish and just spill it all over the place. And around the same time, I guess I had a boyfriend who. And we went to the Flower Theater.
Oh yeah, I remember.
In Takoma,
sure.
Where we did not feel so very welcome, but it was very calm and no incident or insults or anything like that. And again, thinking Takoma is so together, it's like this peace and so welcoming, and you don't have any of these tensions, and wondering how it gained that sort of sense.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I think it had a lot to do with the strength of that neighborhood, because
that's where I'm leading exactly.
Was just from what I could see, and I didn't live in Takoma, but just from the time I spent a lot of time up there because of the pool in the summers and the theater, and it just seemed to be a closely knit neighborhood where a sense of real civility sort of prevailed.
Yeah. Did you know of? I know you were very young at the time. About Neighbors Incorporated. Was that ever?
I did not know about Neighbors Incorporated then. I certainly didn't. But you're right. It had a sense of peace and camaraderie about just the theater and the neighborhood. So you felt very safe there, and you felt very welcome, and you I have just very strong memories of just a very warm, inviting environment.
Yes, indeed. I can remember I moved there when I was my first year in high school, and moving from Spingarn to Coolidge, and moving from African American community to a mixed community, and all this sort of thing, and I remember sort of just sitting on my sofa. Puzzling over racism and hatred and these kinds of things, and wondering about what was going to happen in this new neighborhood and all. Within the first 2 or 3 weeks, actually, not months, but weeks. And then there was a knock on the door, and it was Neighbors Incorporated coming to welcome us to the community.
Oh, isn't that
And it was an amazing experience to have them come in and sit down.
And they just observed
50
another anniversary.
50 years.
50 years. That's tremendous.
Yes, and they
That probably had a lot to do.
Oh, it seems like nothing, and yet it seems so much. If everybody, each person carried a little bit of that piece with them.
And at that time,
yeah,
that was very significant, and it still is.
Yeah.
But I think particularly, at a time when Washington was so, racially segregated
and polarized,
in so many ways. So that was a very strong influence.
Okay. I'm glad you're so corroborating what it is I have sensed about the community as well. I'm curious to know if you ever, the questions I have now are related to, let me just turn it off and on again, and I'll start.
Okay.
But I am going to be asking you about
That's really reaching back into my, okay.
I'm actually, many people today who aren't aware of the whole history, I think of Takoma Park, Maryland. What do they say? The Takoma Park Free State, the independent Republic of Takoma Park, and that sort of thing, which is fine and wonderful. And I do have a sense of that. Indeed, I told you I'm a writer. When I wrote my first novel, I had the special path I would take down Piney Ranch Road and across Philadelphia and up Walnut or whatever. And it was like, I remember writing in my novel and in my journals, this must be somebody's poem. That it felt like I was inside of a poem, just to walk through there. But it didn't have the same sense of, where we have in Fairfax, Virginia, for example, them passing laws, and it may not be Fairfax, but I shouldn't say that, because I'm not sure what county it is, to make sure that no illegal immigrants anywhere around and all that. Here, Takoma Park calls themselves a place of a haven. This is a place to come and to come.
And very welcoming. I still like riding through Takoma Park, both the DC part and the Maryland part, because first of all, the architecture is fascinating to me. All the houses are all different, the bungalows, and it just has this country-like charm to it. And then there's this sense of continuity from the DC to the Maryland
it was all one. When I was there, it was.
Yeah, there is a sense.
Our post office was actually in Maryland.
Isn't that something?
At that time, and now we feel discombobulated because it's separated out.
And then I love to see the signs in people's yards, advocating different causes. It's like, this is really interesting. So they really seem welcoming of differences.
Of difference. I guess what I would like to add, do you have any memory? I know you're so young that at the time you probably don't have any memories of Takoma Park, Maryland. But if you have, did you have a sense of that?
Oh yeah,
then as well.
I think so. I think so. I'm trying to think of some of the places. My memory is of the neighborhoods and the fact that there were these contiguous neighborhoods that where you had this feeling of openness, it was just a little offbeat, a little different, a little quirky, a little eclectic, but welcoming.
Yes.
Much more so than other communities, other areas, but it was very open.
Do you have any memory of the Seventh-day Adventists? That was their.
That was the church there.
And they were a strong influence.
Because it was actually pretty close to Riggs Park, that area, because you come straight up New Hampshire. I think isn't that New Hampshire?
New Hampshire or Eastern, you can come either way.
Eastern, it was Eastern, that's Eastern.
I think it's Eastern, yeah.
And so, yes, and I remember, all the little shops that were along there. Unfortunately, a lot of that's now coming back.
Yeah.
So that was actually pretty close to where I grew up, and maybe, that's why I, remember driving through that area, including the area with the Seventh-day Adventist Church, because my mom, we went through those areas all the time.
Okay. Do you have any memory of the parade that was every 4th of July? Did you ever do that?
I don't remember
you didn't
the
do
parade.
That. Okay. Probably.
No, and the reason I'm sure the reason I don't remember the parade is because our 4th of July celebrations were very home-centered, and we basically, we barbecued in the backyard, and then we had the little backyard fireworks,
Yes, I know.
that we'd let off in the alley.
Oh, yeah.
That was, from our perspective, that was really wonderful, and it, again, very fond memories of a very different time in Washington when it was the city much slower pace, but still wonderful neighborhoods then and now. I mean, that's I think one of the best kept secrets about this city is it is truly a city of great neighborhoods.
Yes.
And they're all so different. There's something for everybody. You know, you've got Takoma Park, which is eclectic and charming, and then you've got, you've got Georgetown, which, has its appeal. You have Riggs Park, which is where I grew up, which was quite lovely. You've got, Hillcrest and Ward 7. There are just so many amazing neighborhoods, Palisades, and you can each one has a different feel.
Thank you. You see, I told you my field is epic, and this is just made for epic city with all these. It's like each one is adding its own part to the story, this elaborate story. My dream is to create is to help, not create it, but to evoke it in a way and help weave together all these different.
Absolutely, and I think. The neighborhoods really, and the strong ties that people have to their neighborhoods in Washington is something that people don't think about when they think about Washington.
Mm-hmm. They certainly don't.
You hear about, and we've just gone through a campaign where all the candidates talk about, how you want to change Washington.
Doesn't it feel funny when I tried, at first, I said, oh, well, it's just those, but after a while it gets to you. Stop talking about us like that, would you? But they don't know us. They're not talking about us.
They're not talking about that. Yeah, I think they're talking about political Washington.
But still, it feels strange.
It does, because they don't differentiate. But they're not talking about the Washington that we know, which is very much a neighborhood a city of strong neighborhoods where people have deep ties to their neighborhoods and their families and to their neighbors, and they cherish them. And I can think of so many neighborhoods like that, and so I hope that that message is one that we'll be able to get out more and more.
Well, we're with the opera, by the way. We are. There's one piece. I have an opening. Essentially, you can imagine like the camera sort of coming in on the eastern point where Anacostia and Kenilworth and Deanwood all, and great. My characters are racing. In 1939, racing downtown to be in time for the concert.
Oh, wow. And
so you're traveling like up Benning Road and those sorts of places downtown. But and the song that's being sung to convey all of this is "Oh, What a Beautiful City." Right. And instead of just using it the way it is already, I add all sorts of DC neighborhoods into the song.
Oh, that's great.
We've got Georgetown and Hillcrest. We've got LaJoy Park and Deanwood.
Yes.
And we've got
amazing.
And all the songs just calls up one neighborhood after another. That was probably the most fun. So
I'm sure it was.
I list all the universities and what do I say? Congress and Congress Heights.
Yes. I do think that's a message we need to really get out more and more about the city of Washington, because it is a special place.
Yeah. Well,
near dear to our hearts.
Yes. Well, and I'm told you're helping to sponsor our big party.
Looking forward to that. Yes. I really hope that we will be able to restore the Takoma Theater as a venue for our city and for our ward. And we don't have any, if you think about it. There are really no performing venues in the ward. I don't know if there are very many even in Ward 3.
Ward 3? I don't think, no, just outside the city line, but not inside.
Not inside. So even for the entire upper northwest, and for that matter lower, until you get down into the theater district.
And Ward 5 has Catholic University, I guess, but
right.
But that's all.
So there's a great need, and it has such historic significance. I think it has the potential to revive the local economy in that whole area.
Yes.
And there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that. It has all that. To me, that area has all the ingredients of a cultural and economic hub for Ward 4. And, obviously as a citizen of Ward 4 and as president of Ward 4 Democrats.
Yes, I was telling my mother, I was coming to see, guess what, she's in charge of Ward 4 Democrats, I told her. She's so excited. She was so moved. I've never, my mother and I have been living together since my father's illness, and it feels like a sister most of the time.
Sure.
But this election made me realize the generation difference, because it's like in my lifetime idea, and it was more poignant for her.
Yes, my mom too. How old is your mom?
She's 84.
My mom's 89.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, she'll be 90 in August, and same thing.
Oh,
same thing, and it was, it was very powerful for her, and very powerful for all of us.
Yes,
but
there's something,
particularly for that.
But there's something that I was actually at the opera that night, listening to Carmen, and when I got home that Tuesday night, instead of having the television on, I mean, she's a lively 84-year-old. She was like almost in the fetal position, looking at some 1930s black and white movie she couldn't bear to see if he hadn't. She says, what if these white people have been lying to? What if they really don't? Because you knew, of course, you had to have the whole country. You can't just do it with African American voters.
Right.
And she said, I wanted you with me in case it was all a lie.
I knew several people who felt that way, but I didn't. Yeah. I just felt that there was a point at which, when I woke up that morning, I just, I said, this is going to happen. I mean, all we have to do now is kind of go through the motions and do what we're supposed to do, because I do think that we need President-elect Obama.
Yes.
And he's a man for our time, and obviously the country really realized that, and there were just so many things that started to fall in place, and you look at the reaction that we have gotten here in our country, particularly among the youth. It's just re-engaged people.
I've never seen these
so many
young
levels,
people and young men of all. There's nothing.
Young black men, feeling proud, of themselves and what they can contribute, and then look at the response from the rest of the world. So this is one of those transformational experiences.
Yes. I'm glad to. Yes, there's a line.
I'm just happy to be alive.
Yes,
to be a part of it.
Just to be able to see it with your own eyes.
Yes, and hopefully we can all contribute our efforts to move.
Yeah, we have to all get to work
push
now.
The agenda forward. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think this has been a wonderful.
So
I know that last part had nothing to do with the
all
theater,
right.
but we'll work it out, and
Thank you so
I will.
much. If I have any other thoughts or memories, I know my memories are kind of vague. I'm sorry they are more specific.
I need that enthusiasm. It seems to be. I can. I was thinking about My Fair Lady. You remember the character there could place everybody according to how they spoke.
Yes, yes.
Well, I feel like I'm getting really good now. I know exactly when you were there.
That means you've been doing your homework.
It's making me feel good because I guess as a writer I'm sort of off alone, and as a classicist I'm sort of reading Greek and Latin somewhere, but I don't have any real people. And now all of a sudden it's fit I know where she was. She was there. Okay, well thank you. I'm going to turn off all of these.
Yes, thank you very much. And again, I apologize for being late.
No, I feel like I should tell her that she can cancel it and come another. Because you're just walking in,
Well, I wasn't going to get. I knew with the holiday.